Welcome back to another edition of Spinoff Investing Simplified's YouTube channel. And today we are talking a little bit more about the Sandridge Permian Trust. It's one that we talked about a little bit recently, a couple of weeks ago. I'll make sure that there's a connection to the video from previous assessments on this, and then we'll go ahead and see what's going on. Check it out. Hey everyone, this is Greg Miller from Spinoff Investing Simplified. I'm your host here at Spinoff Investing Simplified's YouTube channel. And I appreciate you stopping by and taking a look around. If you appreciate this video or any of the others, please subscribe to our channel. We would love to have you along. We also appreciate your comments, and smashing that like button helps us out with the YouTube algorithm. We sure appreciate your time with us and hope you enjoy this video. Thanks a bunch. So, an update on the Sandridge Permian Trust from this week. So, this week, Pedevco, the company that's put in the tender offer for the Sandridge Permian Trust, or PERS assets, put in a request for information with respect to a transaction that was done last month with PERS assets to Avalon. So, this is a really interesting, a lot of different moving parts in it. I mean, it even sounds like it almost has a little bit of cloak and dagger type of stuff going on, where Avalon, which is is one of the interested parties in PERS assets, because they pay PERS in order to use some of their assets in order to extract oil. And they went up, they purchased approximately 31.8% of those assets for $4.9 million. Well, the details of this will help Pedevco's leadership better evaluate that. And in order to really understand this, I think I'm going to move along and show you I'm going to go actually to the news release and share with you what it has. So let's move here real quick. So you have here, Pedevco requests information from Avalon and Monterre demonstrating that the asset sale truly reflected an arm's length transaction done between non-affiliated parties at fair value. Based on public information, it appears that these entities are under common ownership and under control, with Carter Montgomery, executive chairman of Avalon, Steve Pugh, president and CEO of Avalon, and Brandon Hall, CFO of Avalon, not only serving as executive officers of Avalon, but also as principals of Monterre Holdings Limited and Monterre Partners Limited. A principal of each, Dickie Hunter, also serves as the president of Monterre and certain of its related entities. Further, Avalon and Monterre have entered into multiple agreements, including a contribution and support agreement dated August 26th. I'm going to skip ahead here. But they go down here, September 4th, letter to Avalon. The trustee believes that the purpose behind that provision, however, was not to enable Avalon to employ that sale procedure to force the trust to enter into a merger with an entity in which Avalon has a close relationship. If Avalon and Monterre are indeed affiliates under common ownership and control, or even in a close relationship, it begs to question how they fairly arrived at $4.9 million as a fair value for 31.8% of the trust's total assets. Further, if $4.9 million is truly a fair value of 31.8% of the trust's total assets, then that would imply the full value of the trust's assets prior to the asset sale are worth only $15.4 million, leaving the trust now with the remaining assets with an implied value of only approximately $10.5 million. If the trust was only really worth $15.4 million prior to the asset sale, then why, as of October 15th, 2020, had Monterre acquired 2.7 million trust common units on the open market at a cumulated weighted average price of $43.66 per unit, which implies a trust value of $22.9 million. Notably, Pedevco's exchange offer for the trust common units, when initially made on October 13th, 2020, valued the trust at $28.1 million. So basically what this is saying is the PERS assets, the insiders are starting, they're like using their cash in order to buy PERS at a discounted rate, because it looks like they recognize that there's some value here. Pedevco also recognizes the value here, and both of them have valued it much more than what it currently is going for. So it's really interesting to look at that. Based on these actions by Avalon and Monterre, Pedevco strongly believes that Avalon and Monterre have significantly undervalued the trust's royalty interests in the asset sale. We're going to skip down to here. Pedevco demands on behalf of all interested parties and common unit holders of the trust that Avalon and Monterre publicly release or provide the trustee for release. 1. Details to which the trust royalty interests were released in the $4.9 million asset sale. A detailed analysis to support the $4.9 million valuation ascribed to these royalty interests, and an explanation as to why Avalon and Monterre were able to effectuate a cash closing of $4.9 million in the asset sale that stripped assets from the trust before Avalon paid to the trustee the $4.65 million distribution from the period ended February 29th, 2020 that remains unpaid and outstanding. To me, that third bullet that Pedevco leadership is putting out there is probably the more interesting of all, and it's the thing that is something to pay attention to. Now let's look at this valuation for a second, this 15.4 million prior to that. If you dig into Pedevco's recent 8K filing in conjunction with their 10Q, they have some interesting stuff here, but this is what they're valuing the total assets for right here. Like, and I think that they did this in response to the request by Pedevco. So PERS Trust Units, they basically said, you know what, the actual value of the royalty interests is 15.4 million. We're making a total assets of about 18.5 with 3.9 million in cash. I find this really fascinating. I also find it a little bit disconcerting, being someone that's jumped in onto this particular tender offer. It may not be the best position for someone to take. So you may or may not want to be in on this right now, given all the things that are swirling around this. Now, with that in mind, there are some other things that you also have to understand. We'll go back to this. So you also have to understand that Pedevco leadership, they're concerned about this because they want to purchase PERS assets. But PERS assets seem to be being purchased up by Monterre and Avalon, and it looks like it's turning into a battle between these companies in order to get it. So Monterre and Avalon, don't think of those as separate entities. You need to think of them as probably the same entity with similar interests, and then Pedevco being the other interested party. So basically we have two different parties that are interested in this particular not tender offer, but this particular company. And they're doing what they can in order to take all the unit holders and their trust holders, take care of their own interests with respect to the assets that are underlying this trust, these trust holders. Now, I will tell you that in my opinion, it's unknown if this tender offer is going to go through. And therefore, that high return that I identified in previous commentary may be wrong. And I want you to be aware of that, because if you have gone into this and you, again, these are tender offers, we don't always want to put all of our money into them. So you need to pay attention to what the value is behind it and look into this. Full disclosure here, I am maintaining a position in PERS for this. I've got a couple of reasons. One, it looks like they will have a payout for the purchase of these assets that happens next year, early part of next year, January or February. I've assessed that that's going to be about $9 or 10 cents per share. And at 37 cents per share, that's almost 25% of the value of the current position. I also look at it with PERS. It looks like it's going to be liquidated at this coming up here, and Avalon is purchasing the shares at 43 cents per trust unit. That tells me that Avalon sees that there will be a value in these particular shares, and they have about 4 or 5% of this right now. So that tells me that they are definitely wanting to get into a position where they can control what's going on with this. I appreciate Pedevco coming in and putting in a second opinion to this, and I'm pretty sure that the value of this is a little bit higher than the 15.4 million that they've been talking about previously. It's probably closer to 20 million for it. And so hopefully 20, even up to 30 for Pedevco, this might turn into a lucrative return. It just might be a little bit longer than what I initially anticipated. That being said, if I can go ahead and tender the shares and get Pedevco shares in place of it, and Pedevco shares stay above $1.40 a share, I'm going to just go ahead and do that, because I think that's a good return on my income or my assets over the month and a half or so that I'll be in this position. So anyway, that concludes my update on the Pedevco request, and we'll see how this works out. It's becoming quite a dramatic experience. So anyway, thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you next week.
As we finish up, we have one final note for you. This video was made for educational purposes only. Any companies mentioned in this presentation were discussed for educational purposes only. Discussing such companies and the specifics about them is for illustrative purposes only and not a solicitation to purchase them. We recommend that you conduct your own research and identify why you might want to own the company yourself before you commit any funds. We also recommend that you seek the services of a financial advisor that has considered your situation as your fiduciary. May your education here grow your knowledge, improve your personal investing performance, and give you the confidence to take control of your future. Thanks.